Hey, Jonathan. Thanks for joining me today. To start, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to, Kieran. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I'm Jonathan Zenkich, junior here at Michigan, originally from Illinois, studying business here. I'm the president of UpRound Ventures, which is a student-run VC here on campus. What that means, in sort of the short version, is that we source, fund, and accelerate companies on campus and sort of across Southeast Michigan. And yeah, super excited to be talking with you today about it.
Yeah, excited to chat with you about UpRound Ventures. Kind of curious, like, how did you first learn about the organization?
Yeah, I had an interesting path to getting to it. I actually did not come into Michigan thinking I was going to study business. I came in thinking I was going to study political science and potentially go to law school or go into government. And I pretty quickly found that there was a bit of a disconnect between my expectations and my classes. I thought I was going to be learning really hands-on skills that I could start using right away. And a lot of it was just super theoretical. So I sort of went around campus looking for ways that I could have a more immediate stake in what I was doing and a more immediate impact. And at one of the club fairs, my winter semester here, so my second semester on campus, I saw UpRound, and I had always had sort of a bit of an interest in startups and thought that startup investing was really interesting. Went and talked to the people who ran the organization, and then was fortunate enough to join, and have been going deep down the hole of VC since.
Nice. And UpRound Ventures is split up into three operating pods. So Deal Flow, Fund, and Accelerate. Can you maybe give just a quick overview of each of them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot. We like to think that it's a lot like how a VC would sort of look for portfolio companies and interact with portfolio companies once they invest in them. So we start off in our deal flow pod where we're out sending emails and going to events to find startups both on campus and across Michigan, sometimes across the Midwest as well, that we can provide some value to. And that value comes in the form of our fund pod or our accelerator pod. Sometimes in our deal flow pod as well, when we realize that startups are a bit too late stage for us. Late stage for us is still pretty early stage. It basically means they have any revenue or are trying to raise more than $100,000 or so. And we'll connect them with a bunch of investors that we have in our network, especially ones in Southeast Michigan here. And then sometimes we'll fund startups ourselves. For student startups, this is like a really good option because we don't take equity, normally looking at check sizes from $3,000 to $10,000. We get a lot of very gracious funding from the school and some donors who are external to help us sort of keep that mission going and fund startups. And once we've decided to fund a startup, or we found one who maybe doesn't need funding right now but could use some other help, we work with them in our accelerator pod. We're normally running 3 or 4 projects there every semester where we have a group of students who are in UpRound working on a very specific issue to a company. That can be go-to-market strategy, it can be web development, it can be product design, really anything that we can help out with. And I think our students are pretty uniquely positioned to do that because we affiliate ourselves with both the business school here and the College of Engineering. So we have people from a lot of different backgrounds who can bring different skills to these startups and help them grow.
Cool. You mentioned a lot there. Wanted to kind of dive deeper into just like your guys' like investment thesis and like what startups you're actually looking at. I think you mentioned like you're looking at like free revenue, raising a small amount of money. What are
Yep.
some other factors that you're considering when you're looking to invest in a startup?
Yeah, so the checks that we write are exclusively Michigan founders, University of Michigan founders who are currently in school here. That's sort of part of our mission, part of our mandate when we receive donations from our donors or grants from the school to do this work, is that we're putting them to work on campus. So that's certainly the biggest criteria that narrows us down quite a bit. From there, we're really looking to find companies that we believe are going to be venture backable in the future. And that means we're essentially taking some risks on hoping that some of the metrics that we all know are attractive to VCs at the seed, Series A, and Series B stage are going to be achievable for those companies. So just recently, we were having a conversation about the specific business model of a company that we were looking at. Currently, they're doing a B2C sort of sales motion. We thought a B2B motion might be a bit better. And then from there, we thought through, should this be more PLG focused? So sort of growing from bottom up, or targeting the stakeholders and decision makers higher up in the organization. So certainly thinking through business model for one, because that's something we can actually tangibly think through. We don't generally have a ton of metrics, so we're thinking through a lot of things that pre-seed funds would often think through: business model, team, market, how innovative the product and solution is what we're often looking at.
Cool. And can you give just like more background information on like the money you're investing from? It sounds like the school is giving you some money, maybe some alumni. Like how much money
Yeah.
do you guys have? And yeah, I guess like what's the frequency of investments? How much money do you have left to deploy? Like how does that all work?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we don't take equity. And as a result, the money that we are allocating to startups, we don't expect to get anything back. If startups have a really successful exit, oftentimes we would hope that those founders would want to donate back to us. And that has been some of the ways that we've gotten money. I think over the last 4 years, which is about how long UpRound has been around, we've invested right around $80,000. And we're investing a further $40,000 throughout the next 3 semesters, which is currently what we have to work with. Generally writing 2 to 3 checks per semester, varying in size from as low as $1,500 or $2,000 up to $10,000. And in terms of where those funds come from, big source is the school. We work really closely with all the entrepreneurship institutes here, which is the Center for Entrepreneurship in the College of Engineering, and then the Zell-Lurie Institute, which is through the business school, who provide us with a lot of our funds. And then we have various deal flow partners that I mentioned who we provide deal flow to. And some of those memos that we've provided and introductions that we've made to those partners have resulted in actual investments being made. And oftentimes when that happens, those funds are, very happy with us and are willing to donate a little bit to us to keep our mission sort of going and repay the favor that we've done for them. So those are our 2 main sources. And then, there are some alumni that also donate, and smaller donations of that nature and initiatives that we have for that.
Gotcha. So this is really grants, not investments, you would say?
When someone gives us money?
No, when you guys are allocating money, because you're not expecting any equity in return.
Correct.
Gotcha. And then kind of curious, like what's like the investment process look like? Like how do deals get done?
Yeah. I think that's probably the most exciting part of UpRound, is how you can come into Michigan as a freshman or a sophomore and get to have a say in the way that we're making investments. So typically when a deal comes in that we're interested in making a grant to, we will start off with just having a couple of the sort of junior people in UpRound write up a deal flow memo on that company, sort of meet with the founder multiple times, get a sense for if they have strong conviction that this is something that we should allocate our time to. And once they have that, we have sort of weekly or bi-weekly meetings as an entire club where they'll present that memo in front of the entire club. Generally, there's 40 to 50 people at that meeting. From there, we'll have sort of a 30 to 45-minute discussion, Q&A as a club to the people who are sort of bringing that memo to the table. And they'll answer those to the best of their ability. From there, we'll do sort of an initial surveying of interest in that company. So we'll send out a form to all of our members where they can rank their opinion on whether or not we should allocate funds to that company. And then from there, the person who brought that memo into the club will look at that data. We'll think about the questions that they were asked, often meet again with the founder. And if the club is aligned with their conviction after that, we'll go to sort of a smaller meeting with just board and the members of fund to make a final decision on that grant.
Cool. And what would you say is like UpRound Ventures, like value add to startups that you guys work with?
I think UpRound Ventures' definite value add is just the breadth of experience that we can bring startups, as I kind of mentioned earlier. We have students who are studying aerospace engineering, a bunch of students studying computer science, industrial engineering, business, philosophy, any major that you can pretty much imagine on this campus has some sort of representation in UpRound. And as a result, we're able to put a team together on some of these projects that would be pretty hard to put together elsewhere without spending a lot of money on hires. And just the insight that these pre-revenue, pre-product founders are able to receive from having those teams is extremely helpful, because they're not going to be able to get that from often the circles that they're operating in, where they're just focused on perhaps the software that they're creating or the product that they're trying to design.
And can you give maybe an example of one of these like consulting projects that your teams helped start up with? Like what's the goal of the project and what do they accomplish?
Yeah, I'll talk about one that I worked on, which was my freshman year. I worked with a company that was working on designing and producing a clean energy bar. So basically, they had this new blend of what was called green tea, caffeine, and protein together that was supposed to be a very like sustaining energy source. And they were struggling with two things. One, how do we market this and set it apart from every other similar product on the market, especially within our target audience who we think could reasonably be college students given where we are in our lives. And then two, how do we find a supplier and manufacturer to help us make this a reality? And those are two very different problems. So I worked on the sort of first problem, which was thinking through the marketing motion. We put on a bunch of events on campus, made materials for them to do that. And then someone who was a bit more focused on manufacturing, who was an industrial and operations engineer here, worked on procuring a supplier for them. And they were ultimately able to get that in motion and have been doing pretty well since.
Cool, love that. And what do you see as like the biggest opportunities to just improve UpRound Ventures in terms of like how you guys work with and support founders?
I think the biggest opportunity for us, and we've been talking through this a lot recently, is potentially transitioning ourselves to a equity investment focused fund. And I think the reason that we believe that could be a big opportunity for us is because it creates a sustainable aspect to the relationships that we have beyond just the people who are on campus at a given time. I think one of the problems that we faced, and I know a lot of other folks have faced who are in similar situations to us, and I think you've probably talked to some of the people who have this problem, is we're only here for 4 years. Oftentimes, I'm only going to be in this leadership position for a year or two. And as a result, I constantly have to transition this very productive relationship that I have with a founder or with some other stakeholder in UpRound to a new person in the club. And after 4 years, there's a 100% churn of our membership. So creating equity investments would allow us to hopefully sustain that in a much more tangible way and would give us more skin in the game to make sure we're doing that correctly.
Makes sense. And now I want to sort of transition to questions to help students who want to join the UpRound Ventures internal team.
Yeah.
Can you give an overview of like when you guys recruit and what the application process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we recruit at the beginning of the fall and winter semester, so twice a year. I think our recruitment process is a bit different from some of the other more traditionally focused business clubs that you might see on campus. I'm sure a lot of the people who would be listening to this know what I'm talking about with sort of the consulting clubs where you might have a case, or finance club where you might run through some technicals. So we have an application that is really a screen for a few things. The passion that people have for the entrepreneurial ecosystem on campus, the way that they could add value to UpRound and the value that UpRound could add to them, and then just a general sense of intellectual curiosity. I promise you, when we have conversations about who we're going to let into the club, we have these 3 things written down on a board, and we're like very open to candidates that is exactly what we're looking for. And so we have our application and recruitment process tailored to do that. We have an application that asks questions. On that, we run into a couple in-person events where we just get to know people who are applying better, like a speed dating event, sort of coffee chats with members, just so that the applicants can know exactly what they're getting themselves into and what they have to look forward to. Then we have a first round of interviews, which consists of a pretty typical behavioral interview that tests the things that I just mentioned, and then a case interview where we give people the opportunity to look at a startup deck and sort of just walk us through their thinking as we guide them with some questions. And then from there, we go into second round of interviews, which is a sort of group style of interview where we're testing a bunch of ideation, startup evaluation, and just different skills. We want to see how people work together and think through the problems that we're all working together to think through.
Cool. And how do you assign like students to the operating pods? Like they list their preferences, do they transition through each of the pods, or how does that work?
Yeah, so when a student joins, they list their preferences. They pretty much always get their first choice. Sometimes you have to give someone second choice just because of capacity, but everyone ends up in one of the pods that they choose for a semester. After that, they have full mobility to move pods or sort of go up in that pod that they might really have found that they enjoy, so they could take on a leadership position there and continue to move up and really solidify themselves there. They have a lot of mobility, and yeah, we try to be as flexible as possible because we know at the end of the day, this is a student organization that people are volunteering to be a part of. So we want to make sure they get to work what they want to work on.
Gotcha. And as you onboard new team members, I guess like how do you guys train them? What does that look like?
Yeah, we have a very, I would say, robust education semester for everyone who joins the club. So your first semester, you'll have a weekly meeting with two of the other board members we have who help run our education. They're both have extensive experience in VC and growth equity and working with startups, sourcing startups. They walk you through all of the different topics that we think are going to be useful. You read a book called Venture Deals, which I remember reading was super useful and formative to everything that I learned that semester. And then we do a lot of interactive activities, have some of our alumni come in over Zoom or in person if they can to teach some more specific skills that we think as students we might not be qualified to teach. And then part of it is also just getting integrated into the club and, you know, meeting with everyone in the club through sort of casual conversation and different activities so that, you know, they feel like they're a part of this and can work super well from there.
Nice. And last question is there anything I didn't ask about that you think is important to know, either for a founder who is thinking about working with UpRound Ventures or someone who wants to join the internal team?
I think for a founder working with UpRound Ventures, most important thing to know that I hope I've shown, but I want to make sure I sort of double down on, is just the passion that everyone brings to this. Like, we all come to these meetings super energized to help the Michigan ecosystem. That is what motivates us to continue working at this, even when we're all busy with recruiting for jobs and classes and group projects and everything else that I know these students also have going on. So super passionate. And then for students looking to join, this has been like the most formative experience for me in all of college. It enabled me to get the internship in VC that I got, and I ended up changing my major as a result. I've met so many people through it, and I can't recommend it enough, even though, yes, admittedly, I'm a bit biased as president, but.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan, for joining me today.
Yeah, of course. Really great talking to you, Kieran.